Well, okay, I'm Will Fry, also known as Will Haven 720, and I'm an ex-Scientologist. And
It's like an AA meeting.
right, well, titles be what they are, but I was raised in the church. I wasn't technically born into it because my mother didn't discover Scientology until I was about 2. Yeah, and that was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I wasn't born there, but I was raised there. And that's where she met my stepdad, who was on staff at it was a mission at the time, the Ann Arbor Mission, which became Ann Arbor Org shortly after that. They, between 1982 and 1988, were putting in most of their time and money into the church, being on staff and also just committing financially to services and just donations in general. Everything they had, everything they could borrow or earn from banks or from family members, everything they had. We when I say we, I mean my mother, my stepdad, and then my 2 sisters, younger sisters, offspring of my mother and my stepdad. We all lived at my grandmother's house, my stepdad's mother, actually. And I just remember being in elementary school at, that young, as young as 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old. When I woke up, they were already gone for the day, gone to work for the church or do something for the church. I got myself ready for school. I went to school. I came home and either was watched by my grandmother or went to a babysitter's house, which oftentimes was another Scientologist taking care of all of the neglected Scientologist children. So by the time I fell asleep, or I'd say by the time they were done for the day working for the church, late at night I was already asleep, either in my home with my grandma or at the babysitter's house. So I really didn't get to see my parents a lot, and I really raised myself during those years. People helped, but I didn't have that sort of care, and it was pretty hard. So no kid is very good at raising themselves, so all I can say is I was miserable, and all I really learned how to do was deal with that misery. And by the time my parents had started to take back a little of their own lives, I was already on the path of no hope for an education, no hope for a future. Very, very, very much behind in school. Never read. Never did my homework. Never did anything but, run and play, because anything was better than reality, which was very harsh at the time. By the time I was 13, again, I was in Ann Arbor, going to Ann Arbor Public Schools. By the time I was 13, my teachers had such concern with me and my performance in school that they had pulled my parents in to suggest that I go to a therapist, get some counseling, which, as you know, is the last thing in the world a Scientologist wants to hear, is that their kid needs counseling. So I was sent to go to a Scientologist boarding school known as the Mojave Desert School in Newberry Springs, California, which is run by one of the original Sea Org members, Yoka Clegg, who, as I understand it, was L. Ron Hubbard's teacher, taught kids on the ship, on the original flagship Apollo. It was her school. It was a boarding school for Scientologist kids. And I went there for a year. I was eventually kicked out for bad behavior, as it were. Bad behavior meaning when I went back home on vacation, I smoked pot. And that was a drug reversion, and that was enough to kick me out. But it was not fun being at that school. It was mostly labor and learning Scientology as opposed to learning actual, reading, writing, arithmetic, that kind of thing. It was more like success through communications and how to clean, and labor. It wasn't all bad. There were some fun times, but there were some very, very dark experiences there as well. One in particular was there was a kid that was a couple years older than I was. I was there when I was 13 and 14, and there was a kid that was a couple years older than I was, and his name was Chiron Thomas, I believe, and he was acting out a little bit, and Yoka Clegg's husband, Frizzell Clegg, beat the crap out of him in front of all of us, and then kicked him out of the school, and then a year or so after that, he killed himself. Another kid I went to school with, Jared, I don't remember his last name, he killed himself too, years later. I didn't see anyone doing very well in school. I saw a little bit of illiteracy there, uncuring, illiteracy, and I saw a lot of frustration with rules that you could tell were orchestrated by someone who had been in the Sea Organization. They had their own version of the RPF. When I was being kicked out of the school, I was treated as if I was on the RPF. All I did was manual labor, and I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone, that kind of thing, or the decks or whatever. So that was fun. So then, after getting kicked out of there, I went back to Michigan and sort of just skated my way through the rest of public school until I was able to drop out at 16. And then start making about $5 an hour making sandwiches. Something I could actually start doing something. And needless to say, is by the time I was 17, my life hadn't gone anywhere, and I was flown out to Los Angeles and recruited by various individuals, including Dave Pettit, the commanding officer of Celebrity Center, to work for Celebrity Center, join the Sea Org, and I did. When I was 17, and just before joining, though, I was working as a vacuum salesman, and having that kind of sales experience is very much in demand for becoming a Sea Org member at Bridge Publications. So by the time Bridge Publications found out that I was on the EPF for Celebrity Center, they wound up trading three Sea Org members to Celebrity Center to get me transferred over to Bridge. And I was transferred immediately after the EPF, and was put to work for Bridge eventually as the Sea Org sales manager, which meant I managed the sales for Celebrity Center International, Advanced Organization Los Angeles, the American St. Hill, or ASHO, and then also the Los Angeles, or LA org.
What is EPF?
A state's project force. It's basic training for the Sea Org. It takes about a month. You run around, you clean, you do grunt work, and you study some basic courses like Welcome to the Sea Org. It's a basic training. It's wiffle ball compared to the actual Sea Org. It's supposed to be able to train you and prepare you for anything that you're going to have to deal with in the Sea Org. It's supposed to bring you up to, oh yeah, you can handle it all now. It's a joke. Yeah, you clean, you run around, and you study a couple things, but you are under no pressure, comparatively speaking, you are under no pressure to do anything, because what are you going to give the Sea Organization as an EPF member? You're going to give them a cleaner window, a cleaner floor. Fine. When you're a Sea Org member and your job is to bring more people in the Sea Org or bring more money into the Sea Org, you are expected to constantly produce more at all times. If you recruited one person in this week, you're required to recruit 2 in the next week, and then 3 in the week after that, and 4. If you ever fail to improve your statistics, if you ever fail to do more, you are now a bad person who needs to be put through ethics and justice handlings and you need to be interrogated, and someone needs to find out what your crimes are that are keeping you from your full potential as a recruiter or as a salesman.